This is BarCode, a cocktail-powered podcast that dives deep into the personalities, criminals, and heroes that have come to define security across the globe. Please join our host, Chris Landon, for another wild foray into the incredible world of humans and how they intertwine with today's modern technology. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Activate.
Welcome to BarCode. I'm your host, Chris Landon, and today I am with the legendary Ted Harrington, a leader of ethical hackers who is dedicated to helping companies build better, more secure software. He's an author, keynote speaker, consultant, entrepreneur, and podcast host, specializing in pen testing, secure software development, and related areas of cybersecurity. Ted, welcome back to BarCode, my friend.
Yeah, man. So good to be back. So good to hang out with you.
You too, man. It's definitely been a minute. I had to look, and it appears that the last time that you were on, I was only 14 episodes deep. So I was a young buck in the world of podcasting.
I got to be there early. That's great.
You did, man. And 5 years later, here I am still winging it.
Yeah.
So,
but now,
but no, man, I appreciate your time, man. It's always great to catch up with you. I know you're a busy person, so thanks for taking the time. I know last time you were on, we got to discuss your first book. I think you were promoting Hackable, so we talked through that. And since then, I've seen you live. I ran into you in a few occasions. By the way, your live presentations are extremely entertaining, man. I don't know if we had a chance to talk through that, but you've actually inspired me to do more public speaking because I love the way that you deliver your message. So,
oh, that's great. That's quite the compliment. I appreciate that. And I think you should get up there on more stages. You got cool stories to tell.
Thanks, man. I've been trying to kind of force myself into it to do more public speaking. And I think the more that I'm doing it, the more comfortable I'm getting. But it's definitely an art form to get up there and be able to move the crowd with your stories, which you do a phenomenal job at. But I also like the message that you give too when you talk. And it's all about the approach of the hacker mindset, which is a term that, we have all heard before to some degree, but I would love to get your perspective on that. And if you wouldn't mind explaining to the audience here today, your interpretation of the hacker mindset and, how the hacker mindset affects everyone.
Yeah. Well, I know that there is a hacker in all of us. And for evidence of that, we just have to look at children. And what are the attributes that children commonly exhibit, right? They exhibit curiosity. They're always like putting their fingers places. They're always asking why. Like kids are curious, right? Kids are non-conforming. They don't just do what you tell them to do because you told them to do it. They're like, they want to think for themselves. And they're like, well, yeah, I know I'm supposed to do that, but like, I'll probably do this other thing. So kids are curious. They're non-conforming. Kids are committed. Like they want that toy. They're going to ask for it and ask for it and ask for it. They're going to save their allowance money. They're going to, sell lemonade. They're going to do whatever they need to do to get the thing they want. So kids are curious, non-conforming, committed, and creative. Kids are funny, right? Like kids say the most wild stuff. Their imaginations have no limits. And you look at those four attributes, those are the hacker traits. Hackers are curious, non-conforming, committed, and creative. And then somewhere along the way, kids become adults. And adults, compared to children, are far less curious, far less non-conforming, far less committed, far less creative. And what that tells us is that these hacker attributes live in everyone, and we have learned to stop exhibiting them. So that means we can also unlearn that. And that's part of what I'm doing with evangelizing around this idea of the hacker mindset with, I gave a TED Talk called Why You Need to Think Like a Hacker. I have a book coming out called Inner Hacker that teaches exactly this. And I just get really excited about this idea because I think the hacker mindset is a superpower. Like, it helps you look at a situation differently and find these pathways that are overlooked. That's what hackers do. That's what the professionals that we work right alongside in the security community, that's the way that type of hacker thinks. But this mindset is applicable to other things too, right? Like, imagine if you can apply that to how you get a job or get promoted or start a company or start a charity or whatever it is you want to do. Like, you can still apply that. And so I have many ways to answer your question about the hacker mindset, but I think we should start there, that there's a hacker inside all of us. And the proof of that is that all of us were once children.
Love it, man. And children are relentless too. I think that's another trait that falls into that category too, is that they're relentless. They're not gonna stop until they get to the end game.
Totally. Like, when I say hackers are committed or children are committed, that's really what I'm getting at. Like, this tenacity, this persistence. Like, hacking it's a lot of tedium, right? It's a lot of trying things that don't work, and it's a lot of trying the same things over and over again. And it's the willingness to do that, to do the tedious thing over and over and over, and fail and run into roadblocks and just wonder if you're getting closer to the target. It's the willingness to do that persistence, that relentless tenacity. I mean, that's so core to the hacker mindset, and children as well.
Love it, man. Last time we talked, you had walked me through how you hacked into a VIP line at a bar once. And you claimed you were part of the party that had reservations. And for me, that was a really great example of the hacker mindset exploiting human behavior or human nature. Do you have any other stories like that you can talk through how hacking can extend beyond technology and exploit other systematic form factors, like, the way that people think?
Yeah, totally. I've been writing a book full of them. I'm so excited about it. I'm not here to try to sell books. Like, I will give books to anyone who wants them. The point isn't to sell books. These ideas I think are so cool that I need to put them in a book. And so that's why I'm referencing it. But the format of the way I designed this book project that I'm working on was because I believe the hacker mindset is not about computers, it's about life. You can apply the hacker mindset to anything. I felt like a logical structure would be like this. Well, what if I tell a hacking story that, like, each chapter is a way that hackers think, as observed or I revealed through interviews and things like that. And so, let's tell a story that's like a hacking story. And here's how a ethical hacker did a thing, found a vulnerability, whatever. And then I'll tell a non-hacking story that's not a security professional, or it might be a security professional, but the ethos of the story is not about computers, to illustrate the same point. And then I teach a bunch of tactics, like, okay, now here's how you could go implement that. And so there's a whole bunch of these stories that are not about computers that I've been working on. And there's so many to choose from, but maybe one that we could talk about was, like, from my own lived experience, was this idea of challenging assumptions. Like, this is one of the things that hackers do really, really well, right? Is they first identify the assumptions, and then they challenge them. They say, is that assumption in fact valid? And this is really important because assumptions, these are the beliefs that people hold about how a system will behave, or how people will behave, or people will interact, or a system will, if X, then Y kind of thing. And so we have these assumptions, but we're often blind to assumptions. So first we have to identify them, and then we have to poke at them and say, like, is that assumption actually valid? And so for me, I had this really sort of revealing thing happen when I teamed up with my business partner, Steve, to run our hacking company, ISE. I was living in California at the time, and so I moved to Maryland, where we chose to headquarter the company. I had a car here in California. I loved my car. And then I moved to Maryland. I bought a car. And after like a year there, I lived really close to the office, but it wasn't close enough to walk or to take transit or ride a bike. Like, all those things were kind of impractical, but I barely used this car. And I started wondering, like, do I need a car? But like, I did need a car because it was still just, it was impractical to get to work any other way. And then eventually came time to open up our West Coast office. So I moved back to California. And at that time, now Uber was pretty well established as a viable like way of getting around. And so I continued asking this question. I was like, do I need a car? And the prevailing assumption was if you live in Southern California where public transit is weak and just everyone gets around by car, like you need a car. And once I first realized myself saying that I need a car, I was like, but do I? Like that's an assumption. I need a car. Why don't I look at that? So I started analyzing this, and I understood some really fascinating things as I started looking at it. So the first was looking at the financial aspects to it. And so when you look at what it actually costs to own just like a base model mid-range car, and I model these numbers on the base model Jeep Cherokee, which is like mid to low end of the Jeep range. I think it's like a 30, at the time it was like a $38,000 car. We're not talking like a luxury car. Practical car for sure, reliable, but not like a status car. And you're talking about car payment of like $500 a month, $150 in insurance, like $200 for parking, a certain amount you have to amortize for maintenance, all this stuff. You start adding all it up, and the number was like $1,200 a month to own a base model mid-range car. And then I looked at, well, what would it take if I just Uber everywhere? And so I just Uber. Before I bought a car and moved back to California, I was like, let me just Uber for a little while, see what happens. And it turns out that I was spending between $450 and $550 a month on a car, not on a car, on ride sharing. And so you look at those side by side and you're like, okay, well, that's wild, right? It's like a third of the price to not own the car. Yeah. And then I started looking at what I think are the far more important benefits, which are the mental health aspect. So now it's like, if there's traffic, if you're driving, that stinks. But if you're in the back of a car, like, doesn't matter. If you're going somewhere parking's difficult, like, that stinks. If you're driving, if you're in an Uber, doesn't matter. Yeah. Parking, worry about theft, worry about maintenance, just like worrying about other drivers, all this stuff. And when you looked at those side by side, it was like financially and mental health wise, it's not even a contest. It makes more sense to not own a car. And yet, here I was this whole time operating under this assumption, like, I live in California, I need a car. And so I decided to not get a car when I moved back to California. And so that was 2014. It's now 2025. So for 11 years, I've been living a completely car-free lifestyle.
Still no car.
I have no car. And like people in LA, which is where I live now, they're like, are you... Wait, what? Like, people cannot believe that I live in LA and I don't have a car. It's less stressful to ride share, but it's going to cost you about twice as much. I'd be like, yeah, that's probably a worthwhile trade-off. But to be like, you eliminate all this stress and it's less expensive. Like, what are we talking about here? And I like that story because it's about an analysis. And so I wanted to tell us like that story for people who are analytical. Like, well, show me the numbers, show me the data. And it's like, well, here's a chart, bro. Like, this shows you the money that we're talking about here. And the point is, it's not like this is going to be the solution for everyone. For some people, it's impractical. Maybe they've got like a bunch of kids, different practices, different like schools, like maybe that doesn't work for them. But for my particular scenario and the city that I live in, based on the factors that are important to me, I was able to make this change that has significantly increased the quality of my life because I challenged an assumption that no one around me I saw challenging. And even today, when I tell people this, and like you were saying, people in LA, or you think that people in LA would be like, but the traffic, like that makes a lot of sense. Even people in LA sitting in, like, I'll say this to someone, they're an hour late to whatever because they just sat in traffic the whole time. And they'll be like, but how do you live without a car? I was like, I don't know. I've been sitting in this coffee shop for 45 minutes, like working, like not stressed while you're sitting behind a wheel. Like, how are you not asking this question? Yeah.
So let me ask you this then, since we're still looking at this from a non-technical perspective, what are some ways or some good exercises for someone to become a better quote unquote hacker, sort of to force this outside of the box thinking or unorthodox problem solving skill set. Is there anything that anyone can do to sort of increase that method of critical thinking? And is that a skill that you think can be improved or strengthened over time?
Yeah, I love that question. Can these attributes be strengthened or improved? And it's an important question because as I was pursuing this book project, writing a book is brutally hard to do, right? It takes so much energy and time, and a lot goes into it. And it did raise the question for me as I'm thinking about writing a book about mindset. Like, is this something innate innate or can it be learned? And that was an important question, because if it's like, well, you can't learn it, then what's even the point of if it's either you have it or you don't, then what's the point? And the observation about kids being hackers, that was for me where I was like, oh, okay, everyone has this. So then some people are better at it than others. So that suggests that, yeah, it can be learned or improved. So I think there's a whole series of exercises people can do. I'm working on actually developing templates that are going to go alongside this book that will help people. Like, throughout the book, I talk about all these ways you could implement. Like, okay, now try this tactic. Here's how you would be more non-conforming. Try this, try this, try this, try this. And then I'm gonna have all these worksheets that go along with it, with like prompt questions and all this stuff. But to just verbalize without like having a worksheet in front of us right now, maybe an example would be this. So let's say we start at the beginning. Like, where do hackers begin, right? Hackers, first and foremost, are curious. Hackers are just, they want to know how things work and why they work that way and what happens when something else happens that was unintended. And so the very, very first question that hackers ask is why? Like, why does this system exist? What's the business reason behind it? And why is this what was built? Or why is this what's being used as opposed to another solution? Why are competing solutions not sufficient? Like, why is someone building this app when another competing app exists? Like, why does that need to be the case? And then once they get the reasoning behind it, and by the way, what I'm describing right now is what people on our team go through when they're scoping out a security assessment. Tell me about the business. What business problem does it solve? And then once they have that, then it's like, okay, well, why did you set it up this way? Why were certain choices about maybe authorization procedures? Like, tell me about that. Why is that the case? So this question is really important. Why? And we need to think about, like, how can we use that as a tool? And what does why do for us? What why does for us is it helps us get a deeper understanding. And when a hacker can have a deeper understanding of a system, they're going to be able to more successfully understand where the bypasses might be successful. How can you find a shortcut or a loophole or something that, an overlooked pathway? So this question is really important, but it's not as simple as just saying, like, why? Why does this thing exist? Oh, because we, had an executive wanted this thing to exist. It's like, well, okay, but let's go a little deeper. And so an exercise that I've been advocating, that I've learned over just my career, is this exercise is called the 5 whys. And this is an exercise that performance coaches and therapists and business consultants that they use to help their clients perform better. And it's as simple as this. You take a scenario that you're thinking about. Maybe it's a goal someone wants to, let's say they're in a different domain in security and they want to get into the world of hacking. Like, people ask me about that all the time. Like, how do I do that? So you take whatever scenario is and you say, why do you want that? Pretty straightforward. Most people probably ask themselves that first question. But then you ask it 4 more times. So you ask it until you've asked this question 5 times. And so basically you ask the question, you now answer it like, well, why do you want to get into hacking? And someone's like, oh, because it's cool. Why is doing cool work important to you? Now that makes you think about the next, whatever the answer to that is, why is that important? Why is that important? And eventually you're going to peel these layers back and you're going to get to a really incredibly deep understanding of whatever the situation is, the dynamic is you're thinking about. And it's then with that deep understanding, now you can start thinking about, okay, how will I approach this situation differently now that I understand it better?
Yeah, man. And that if anyone has kids, they've heard that. But why? Why? Why?
Yeah.
So you've heard this before. And yeah, once you get about 5 layers deep, you're like, ugh. So I think that's on target, man. I really love that, because then it forces you to keep peeling back the layers, and forcing yourself to think what's next. I love that, man. So I want to go back to the book real quick. This is dropping soon, right? Like
It is.
we're at the end of July now. What is the release date on this book?
We haven't officially announced a release date.
Okay.
We're just waiting on a few production decisions. But
Okay.
before the middle of September. It will be sometime in August or early September based on where we're at. I mean, I'm literally at the point where I'm looking at the fully designed, laid out file. And it's just going through and saying like, oh, there should be one extra space here, that kind of stuff. So, but it's all designed.
No, man, this is your second book. So what differentiated this process from when you wrote your first book? What did you have takeaways that you had from the first book that made this process easier, or was it equally as difficult to write and get published?
Well, I definitely, one thing I think that was different from this one versus the first one, different, not removed, but different, was the fear element to it. So going from not an author to a first-time author, I mean, the imposter syndrome you feel in that moment is so profound. And you have all these moments through the process where you commit to things. And you're like, all right, we're going to lock the manuscript now. You can't change it after this because there's a designer out there like designing the whole interior layout based on these words. So like, you good? And you have these kind of moments of panic where you're like, you start obsessing over things that are inconsequential. Like, should this be a colon or a semicolon? Like, I know the copy editor said it's supposed to be a colon, but is it? And you pause and you're like, this isn't about the punctuation. This is about my fear of putting a work out in the world and being wrong or looking like an idiot or embarrassing myself. And the fact that I've now gone through it, been able to publish a book, I don't think I've embarrassed myself. I don't know, maybe I haven't, no one's told me yet.
No, you definitely haven't. But is that something that still affects you, imposter syndrome, even at this professional level that you've reached now? Or is that something that you ultimately were able to get past and that doesn't affect you anymore?
No, I think it does still affect me. I think anyone with a growth mindset is afflicted by this. I think many people in the hacker community are afflicted by imposter syndrome, which, just to make sure I don't lose anyone who's listening, if you're not familiar with this is where people, especially people who are already capable and competent, they fear that they are not competent or capable. And it comes from the viewpoint of like, those of us who are afflicted by this, we look at the people who are more accomplished and we're like, but I'm not that yet. And it's like, but that doesn't mean you're not accomplished or you don't know what you're talking about. I think the way that I experience it differently with this go around, I'm still feeling it. Like, I technically haven't published this book yet, and it's swirling through my head like, oh, on page 222, you might have used a past participle when it's like dumb stuff, doesn't matter. But I think I have the confidence now that like, I know I put in the work to like research this idea from every angle that I possibly could. I mean, I sat down with some of the most prominent voices in the hacker community to get their viewpoint on it. I, of course, have spent the last 12, 13 years working alongside hackers, interviewing hackers, observing hackers. So like, it's possible maybe elements of it, like, oh, maybe this nuance could have been better, but I know I put in the work to write a good book. And so I have maybe less fear about exposing. I've already exposed myself. Like, I've appeared on podcasts like this. I've stood on stages like, giving a TED talk. I've published books. So like, at this point, I would have embarrassed, maybe I still will be able to embarrass myself, but like, I have less of those fears. And so I was able to take some of the systems and processes that I knew were successful from Hackable and apply them to this and then build upon them. So like, having more developed exercises and templates that are going to go with it. And I'm already telling stories from this book in keynotes. So it's like the book's not even out yet. I'm already getting to use it in these really amazing ways. And so it's just been really enjoyable.
Nice, man. And I don't want to get sidetracked too much, but in terms of people that may still be dealing with imposter syndrome, was there anything besides experience and time that helped you get through that?
Actually, I think there's a phenomenal exercise for this that I learned from the publisher of my first book. And I did this exercise in the process of writing that book, and I found it to be so profoundly helpful. And I actually included it in this book. I thought it was so useful and so applicable, especially since imposter syndrome does affect so many people in our community. And I don't know if my publisher had a name for it, but I have named it fear canceling, because I don't think anyone ever called it anything. I'm like, we should call it something. And fear canceling sounds badass. And so the idea is like, how are we going to cancel fears? And it's not so much about removing them, but about becoming comfortable with them. And it has a few steps to it. So the first step, you can imagine writing out like maybe like a spreadsheet. You've got 4 columns to it, and each column you kind of write some stuff. And so the idea is the first column, and you do this for every fear that you can come up with. You write down like, what is the fear? Actually state it, because that actually takes a lot of the power away from the fear once you write it down, once you name it. And because then it's less like vague of like, I don't know, something about writing this book makes me feel uncomfortable. And so
yeah, it's no longer internalized. It's literally, written down.
You're like, oh, there's a thing. You have this like third party perspective on it you can look at. And now you're looking at it literally written down. And so for me, one of those as an illustrative example was one of the fears I had about Hackable was that I might write a bad book, right? That I might go through all this, put all this effort, this energy, this love, like write this thing, and then it's bad and it doesn't help anyone, and I embarrass myself. And it's like, that would just stink. So that was the first, was state the fear. Then the second is, how likely is that fear to come true? Now you could quantify that, be like 90%, or you could make it like more subjective or whatever. I said low to medium, like low to medium likelihood that I write a bad book. And then the third question is, well, what happens if this fear comes true? And so that was interesting to think through, because I was like, all right, well, best case scenario, nothing really that big of a deal. No one reads the book because it's bad. It doesn't really impact me. Maybe I'm a little embarrassed, but like, that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it like completely torpedoes my professional credibility, maybe even like hurts our standing with some of our customers, stuff like that. So that could be pretty significant. And so then the fourth and final column is to ask yourself, well, what could you do to mitigate this outcome, to either make the impact less severe or to minimize the likelihood that this outcome happens? And I thought that was a really productive question to ask myself, because I didn't know how to do this yet. But what I wrote in there, again, my fear is writing a bad book. And so what can I do to eliminate that fear? I literally wrote it down. I said, write a good book. And I kind of laughed at myself as I wrote it, because I'm like, that's cheeky. Like, that's not really. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, actually, it's pretty well documented what makes a book good. Or I bet I can go figure out what that is. Now I have an action plan. Go figure out what makes a book good and make sure I do those things. That's very, very different from this like vague sense of like, I might write a bad book. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I'm not credible enough. And it's like, make it a good book. So that requires you to do a bunch of stuff like identify an audience, identify a problem that they have and you know how to solve it, figure out why the problem matters, and tell them how, give them a way to solve it. And if you can do those things and then pair it, of course, with like good storytelling and good editing and all the good, high value production, like publication, you'll at least not write a bad book. And I'll leave it to readers of Hackable to decide whether it was a good book, but I'm confident I at least didn't write a bad book. And it's because of doing an exercise like this.
I think another part of that is also filtering the noise from people around you that want to see you fail. I know we've all have that. I know some people are affected by that differently. Was that something that you had to overcome, or were you able to sort of isolate and silo your mind into what you needed to do and not have to deal with that?
Yeah, I love that question. So there's a metaphor for this concept, which is called crabs in the bucket. Have you ever heard of this concept?
I have.
Yeah. So for people who are listening or watching who haven't, crabs in the bucket is this idea that if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, all the crabs would like to get out of this bucket. They want to go to freedom in the sea. Well, as soon as one crab is getting like climbing up and almost getting out, the other crabs pull the crab back down. And human nature in its ugliest form, unfortunately, is also like that. We see people, we want people to, I'm saying we, I don't think this is you or me or hopefully most people listening, but I do think that a lot of people, a lot of humans do think this way. They want to see other people succeed like just a little bit. But once the success starts to become outsized, then it's like, oh, we want to take this, this person down. And that's unfortunate. And I did think about that. The way that I made peace with that were a few things. And these are just some maybe analytical way to think about this. And this would be advice for someone who, certainly wants to write a book, but you want to do anything public. You want to start a podcast or appear on a podcast. You want to give a talk. You want to write a white paper. Like, you might have these fears that someone out there there's going to be some troll who's going to be like, oh, this guy's so dumb, doesn't know what he's talking about. And so first of all, we have to realize those kinds of people, that very negative view on the world, that's about them and not about you. So when someone sees someone like you get up on a stage and tell a story and like, you know what, maybe your voice cracked, and they want to take you down for that, like, I want to give that person a hug and be like, I'm sorry that you're so hurt that you want to take down a person willing to put themselves out there to do something like that. So that's one, is like when you hear a lot of this hostility and negativity, that's about, people's own insecurities, not about your performance or contribution or intelligence. The second is there's something to be said for the fact that getting that kind of feedback means that you're actually you're making a difference, right? Like, I think when you look at superstar athletes like Kobe Bryant, he would always talk about he didn't care about the haters, all he cared about was winning. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people would hate on people like Kobe or LeBron or like Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, pick any elite generational talent. They had haters, even though they were the best at what they do. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing, having haters, because that means maybe you're doing something. And then the final way I thought about it was, this way I've stated this is to focus on the cheers and not the boos. So when you get up on a stage to give a talk or to write a book or to host a podcast or appear on a podcast, there are people who are consuming that information because they have a problem and they're hoping you can help them solve it. Now, you might not be able to help solve their problem, but there are people you will be able to help solve their problem. And those people, even if you never meet them and they never express it to you, they're going to be grateful that their problem is solved. They might not care that you help them solve it, but they're going to be grateful that a problem they were struggling with is now solved. And those are the people that you do this for, not the people who are like, oh, this guy's the worst, you don't worry about those people. Now, this is, of course, easier said than done. Like, no one likes getting that negative comment on your, something you posted. Like when after a keynote, I often will get the summary of the survey responses. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the feedback. I used to always read them. I was like, there's feedback in here. This is going to help make me a better speaker. And I found what I was doing was, if there's 100 responses, and if 90 of them are constructive and positive, and 5 of them are neutral, and 5 of them are bad, I only noticed the bad ones. I'm like, there were just 95 good things in here. And I listened to the one guy say, you spoke too fast. And then the next guy say, you spoke too slow. And what am I supposed to do with that? Yeah. And
they're just trying to criticize you,
Yeah. There's some people, they're like, you know what? I'm hungry. And so I'm just going to
exactly.
Someone's asking for feedback, so I'm going to give you something. And so my point in that is I fall victim to it too. It's not as easy as just I just don't care about them. We're all humans, and it does not feel good when people out there critique what you do. But if the mission is to help other people, which for me, that absolutely is the mission with writing books and giving talks and coming on amazing shows like yours. The mission is to try to help people. Then I can focus on that, and the haters along the way, it's like, I'm sorry that this isn't working for you, but the people that it can help, I'm going to focus on them.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, because I know that there are individuals that are struggling with that, and these are three positive ways to move past that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. So switching lanes again, end of July, DEF CON is upon us once again. So let's talk Hacker Summer Camp for a second. What are your plans this year?
This is a fun year because we created IoT Village 10 years ago. So this is the 10th anniversary.
Crazy.
It's like, it feels like we just did it. It feels like we're still figuring it out. So we're going to do, it's going to be fun. There's going to be, well, we're having a party to celebrate. I'm fairly certain there's going to be cake. So maybe there'll be candles. We probably aren't allowed to have candles in a convention center, but we'll figure something out. But we're definitely gonna have a party, and we're gonna have some cool content, hands-on labs, and just experiences where people can learn about hacking IoT devices. I'm gonna do some stuff, some book signings of Hackable. We're gonna do something that we haven't, we've been sort of keeping under the hood for the moment, but we'll do some sort of fun thing around the forthcoming book, and just can't wait to hang out with people. That's what I'm looking forward to do.
That's what I'm looking forward to. So your book signing, is that happening at IoT Village?
I forget what the details are on that.
Okay. Well, send it to me, and then I want to try to get this released prior to Hacker Summer Camp, and I'll get the details there if that's something that is
they'll definitely be
the public.
The details will for sure be we'll be tweeting them out of the IoT Village account. It'll be on the IoT Village. There'll be an official schedule on the IoT Village website. So, but yeah, I'll definitely get you that information.
Cool, man. And for the folks that are listening that aren't already connected with you online, where can they find you?
The simplest is just my name. It's my website, just tedharrington.com. There you'll find all the information about where to find me. On LinkedIn is the primary place that I spend my time for social media, but there's also like all the different, there's links to different research that we've been doing, my various talks, there's information about the books, and but yeah, that's definitely the place to go to find all of it. And I hope people do reach out to me. I'm pretty responsive to my DMs on LinkedIn, so if people, have questions or hit me up or any way I can help, that's what I hope to be able to do.
Okay, well, I just heard last call. You know the drill. You got time for one more?
I got time for one more. Let's do it.
Okay. If you decided to open a cybersecurity-themed bar, what would the name be, and what would your signature drink be called?
I mean, obviously, it'd be pretty cyberpunk. There'd be a lot of purple,
a
lot of blue. There would just be like all forms of house and techno music playing, depending on the vibe at the time. And there would be lots of top shelf spirits. I love me some añejo tequila. Love me some mezcal. Just nice neat drinks. And spinning the music, it would have to be me. I'm not a DJ at all, but I was out at a bar the other day with a friend of mine, and the DJ is like not into it. He's just sitting there, just like pressing buttons or whatever. And he's like, whatever. He's just like a DJ at a bar. It's not like, but it's a vibey bar. It's like one of these LA spots. Like everyone's like cool and good looking and just like having a good time. And I was like, this guy should have more energy. And so then we just start riffing, and he named me DJ Source Code would be my that would have to be my DJ name, Source Code, which I think is a phenomenal name for a DJ. I can just see it, man. Headlining Tomorrowland. Yeah. So that would be, in addition to the drinks, we would have that DJ periodically.
All right. Well, Ted, thanks again so much for stopping by. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope to see you in a few weeks in Vegas.
Me too. We'll see you there for sure.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, buddy.